Our development speed has doubled. And not only has it doubled, but we're delivering more complicated features that have less regressions. So it just allows us to focus on the fun stuff, which is building product.
Well, hey, Jordan, great to see you again. For those who haven't met you, maybe in 30, 60 seconds, can you summarize the story of Fast Growing Trees? You've been there now a couple of years, I think. Tell us about the company overall.
Sure. So I'm Jordan Guggenheim. I'm the VP of Engineering here at Fast Growing Trees. Fast Growing Trees is the world's largest online nursery. And we actually started off as Fast Growing Tree back when our founders almost 19 years ago sold one tree, the fast growing Royal Empress. Since then, we now sell everything from evergreens, fruit trees, palm trees, shrubs, whatever you need to build a beautiful yard. And we have over 2 million customers. And on our busiest day, a single fulfillment center can process over 25,000 plants.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That's wild. Is it just coincidence that you guys built a really fast site and care a lot about performance and fast is in the name, or was that something that you actually care about?
Maybe there is a little correlation there. Maybe it's causation, but I'm not too sure.
You launched on hydrogen in November, time that typically don't touch anything for most companies, but y'all are busiest in the springtime. Makes sense. You're selling plants. Rewind maybe however many months before that. I'm curious on the build up to the decision to move. What was the stack beforehand? What was working for you? What constraints did you have? How did you make that decision? And so let's sort of go up to the decision point, and then we can kind of talk about the build, and then let's get in, sort of follow it chronologically like that.
Great. So we've obviously been growing a lot over the years, and I joined the team in September of 22. And for the first year that I was with the team, we were a Shopify Liquid storefront, and we were building all of our features in that technology. And it became clear to us that we wanted to move faster, deliver more advanced features, and to do these things, we knew that headless was the path forward for us, which I'll explain why. So I would say it was about June of 2023, so maybe 9 months after I started, we began to review headless frameworks. There were a few things that compelled us about headless technologies in general. One is a modern web stack, things like React, Remix, GraphQL, being able to do things in the server. We do a lot of A/B testing and experimentation, and there's just certain experimentation you cannot do in Shopify Liquid, because if you can't do experiment assignment in the server, you can't do something like A/B test the navigation. If you sent that to the client, to the browser, you might have flickering, it might be a bad user experience. So we started our evaluation of headless frameworks in June.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's one of those experimentation on the server. For those who maybe aren't aware, that's one of those critical few things where it really helps make your decision for you. Like the things that we always think about are the constraints we put on why you don't get server control with Liquid. Also gives you all these benefits, right? We can make sure that you have non-breaking changes, like product.title has worked as product.title forever. And you don't have to worry about querying. It's all the data is just there. You don't worry about overfetching. You don't worry about any data loading at all. Now, the flip side is once you want to start doing server-side A/B testing, custom route structures, maybe you're pulling in a huge amount of SEO content from a third-party CMS or something. And I think that overlaps with y'all as well. That's where you start to make, hey, this is kind of a binary decision now. And then, of course, you guys had internal dev team where you're doing all this stuff anyway. So the fact of, hey, we have quarterly releases with storefront API and stuff like that, that's not a huge issue because you're going to be building anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's well said that, with great power comes great responsibility. When you have the freedom to code whatever you want in the server, you can also create performance regressions. You want to be very, very careful to not do too much in the server. You want to think about what you want to cache in the server versus stream or defer after the page loads, things like that.
I reference that Spider-Man quote so often. It's no, totally well said. I mean, I think that gets into that actually brings us into the next topic, really, which is like implementation. I think this is where I'd love to spend most of our time today is diving deep on what that was like for you. We had a lot of calls as you guys were going through. We opened up, some shared chats because you guys were fairly early. You're saying that the decision-making process, did you say that was in June?
Yeah, June of 23.
And then did you get to build right away in June?
No. So let me, to rewind back to that moment. So we have a small team. We have a staff engineer, Andrew, a senior engineer, Sal, and then myself. Back at the time, it was the three of us. And so part of the decision was, what is the way that we can move the quickest to deliver value to our customers? And at the same time, what is the best stack just for the future of fast-growing trees? So that was the lens at which we evaluated as a team the different technologies. And what really drew us to Remix and Hydrogen were a number of things. One, we loved that Remix essentially gets out of the way. It relies on standard HTML APIs like forms, prefetching, and a second order effect of that is the size of the framework is actually pretty small. Compared to some of the large competitors out there to Remix, it's about 1/5 of the lines of code. There's a certain comfort that gave us. If we ever had to roll up our sleeves and contribute to the open source framework, which so far we haven't, but if we did, it would be less lines of code to ramp up and learn the process. The other side of why we chose Remix and Hydrogen is that there were so many templates and things that we could leverage to move quicker. So Hydrogen gives you how to build a robots file, a sitemap, account structures, all of that, the GraphQL, and that allowed us to move much faster. I'd say the final part and the icing on the cake for why we decided to go with Remix and Hydrogen is that another way we can move faster is we could just implement the core set of pages and go live on headless for those pages while working later after that site is launched to convert the rest. So what were those pages? It was our homepage, our collection pages, our product pages, and then the cart. And so what we put off for the initial go live were our blog pages, our about us, terms of service, things like that.
And then you proxied those things in.
Correct.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, did the team have Remix experience before that?
A little bit. Like we had dabbled with a few of the major technologies, building side projects. And then, we really got the main experience by just building the Fast Growing Trees website. And it came pretty easy. There weren't a lot of roadblocks learning the Remix stack because it's essentially just HTML at the end of the day.
Right. I know. It's like there's loaders, actions,
yeah,
and then just return the stuff down. And loaders is where you get the stuff on the server. Actions are where you put the stuff on the server. And everything else is just make a page, right? So I think some of the things that I loved the most about it too is something. I'm curious if this resonates with you, but it's something I've heard from so many different people independently is they felt like they were actually unlearning, especially if they're coming from, other popular React frameworks. Like they felt like they were unlearning a lot of things about React to then relearn the web at large. And that was certainly true for me. I don't know if that you guys felt the same.
I'd say the things that, you have to think in terms of a server mindset. You're not just building a single page app client side. And so there is some some learning you have to do to think about that relationship. But overall, it was pretty smooth.
Cool. That's great. Yeah, I think like state management was one of those big things for me anyway, and knowing, oh yeah, I can just use the URL as my global state for most things. So yeah, so you were saying, so June made the call. You got 3 people. I know you launched end of November.
Yeah. So
already, I imagine people watching this are probably like, dang, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, we worked
built a fast site in a fast amount of time with
There's
3
a theme
people.
Here.
Yeah,
there's a theme here.
Exactly.
Andrew started off with all the infrastructure in July. So deployment pipelines, integrating Sentry for monitoring, building our brand component library, and started then after that implementing features. Andrew was joined by Sal and myself in August, building more features. And throughout the whole process, we're doing code reviews for each other. And I would say by October, the site was getting pretty close to done. There is a, death by 1,000 paper cuts that you do have to be mindful with these headless sites. I think some of the hurdles, you have to be very painstaking with SEO. Are you doing the sitemap the exact same way? Are your titles the same? Is the header structure the same or better when you rebuild the HTML? And so that was something that I took on personally to make sure that every page looked good. You can use a lot of tools. Ahrefs is a good one. Doing site crawls, inbound and outbound links, making sure those are the same. Another thing that was challenging was when Andrew implemented Sentry, source mapping at the time. Under the hood, Cloudflare Pages didn't have an implementation for Sentry, so we had to do some patching to get that to work. I'd say the final gotcha that we had throughout development is the CDN from Shopify isn't on the same domain as your website currently. So we did some advanced things for SVGs where you can have icons. So take a star, which is going to be on a bunch of ratings throughout the page. Ideally, you just have that SVG code once and it's repeated several times across the page. Well, when it's hosted cross-origin, it doesn't show up. So it's an SVG bug. And luckily, there were a lot of workarounds. We actually could just move our SVG XML file that had all of our sprites to a loader, and that actually forced it to serve from the same domain. So we had these little issues that we had to work through, but in general, it was a very smooth process. And we entered email beta testing in October, which I'm happy to get into as well.
I don't know if I'm allowed to confirm this, but I'll go out on a limb and I'll let you know that we do have single domain asset origin on the roadmap. So that is in the near future, hoping to get that out. So yeah, but that that was really discovered with y'all as well as I think taking like the easy way is like SVGR, right? But I know that's actually quite computationally expensive, and so you guys went to use SVG with use, right? And like referencing that from an actual URL. And so I think all those little details were really well. It was just, it's so funny that this was the first major build, or not funny, just kind of very impressive that this was the first build you guys did with Remix. And it just feels like you must have done it before, because the order of execution and the smoothness to launch was very well done, and even hitting snags with. And yeah, you were saying Cloudflare Pages. Originally, you were building on Cloudflare Pages before switching to Oxygen later, right?
When we started our evaluation with Remix, we did use a Cloudflare Pages deployment before we eventually got the Oxygen pipeline going. That is true. And actually, I do want to mention, since we've gone live, there now is a plugin for Sentry on Cloudflare Pages. So I'm not sure if it can be plug and play, but we're currently on the patch that we put on.
So maybe double clicking on the implementation, what was the, like, if people can learn from your experience so they can get this, hey, what's our roadmap to deploy this thing? What was that for you all? Was that intentional? Was that it was just our best guess, and that we got kind of lucky with how things rolled out, or how did that play out?
Yeah, there was a lot of thought that went into the timeline and the roadmap, and we also put in the hours as well. We worked very, very hard in this time period. A few things to call out. One, the longer you're in parallel, new site and old site, the more you have to keep up. If you continue to deliver value to your customers on your existing site, that's just one more feature that you need to support on the new site. And so there's that added benefit to moving quickly of you have to rebuild less. I also want to call out something that I think is a really important caveat, which is you really do not want to have the hubris of, oh, we're going to redo the site and we're going to put a bunch of new features on the new site because we just know that these new features are going to be amazing. They're going to perform well. We just absolutely know that these features are going to knock it out of the park. The danger there is, let's say your new site goes live and maybe you're A/B testing it against your old site and something goes wrong. Like the stats are not as good. Well, it's kind of like finding a needle in a stack of needles because you don't actually have one single thing that it could have been that broke. So the way that we mitigated that risk is Bruno, our chief product officer, did a great job working with the engineering team. We were able to compromise by saying, okay, half the team is going to build on the existing site and keep delivering value. And the rest of the team, as we worked on the new site, we skated to where the puck was going. So if we knew features that were in development, we coded those features on the site, but otherwise we reached consensus with the product team to not just do something completely untested on the new site. There was a little churn as experiments would conclude on the existing site and we would learn something, but there were minor tweaks compared to having to build entire new features. And then when we did roll out, it was a smooth process that actually overall improved site performance.
Speaking of site performance, fast growing trees, I've said it already like 10 times, but fast growing trees is fast. Very impressive core web vitals overall. How do you guys think about performance?
There's a Rich Harris talk that I think is really good inspiration for me personally about Goodhart's law, which is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. And what that means is you want to deliver a very, very fast site, but you also don't want to be glued to just core web vitals as the one stat. And a lot of our past experience, like you alluded to, we must have done this before. There are a lot of tricks that come from all over development, mobile development, web development, that allowed us to think about performance holistically and what the user is actually experiencing. A couple tricks that we did that I think are really beneficial. One thing that may come as a surprise is we only have one image size for our products across the whole site. And you would be like, well, wait a second. So even on a little tile on a collection page, you're serving the full size image? The answer is actually yes. And there's several reasons for that. It's a bit of the sleight of hand. When you serve one image size, on the server, you reduce cache misses. You improve caching across the client, the browser. So when you see a collection tile and you click it, it's that same image that loads on the product page. So the image is just right there. It's just immediately available and it creates this really smooth experience. Other things that we did in terms of performance is you can break apart your GraphQL queries and use caching to your advantage. Things that don't change that much, like a page title, a page description, those you can cache for an entire day perhaps. And then things that need to be more real-time or instant, like available inventory, pricing, things like that, you can have in a short-running query and combine them. And you wouldn't believe it, but there's not a single page that is statically generated on our site, by virtue of the fact that we use Remix, but also just that we do a lot of A/B testing, and a lot of the content has to be dynamic. We also have a lot of complexities where certain plans can't be shipped across state lines. And so with this holistic picture, you can do a lot to make speed fast. And even if the core web vital isn't exactly perfect, even though we do have very good core web vitals, the user experience may feel amazing. Another thing that we really leveraged is Remix's prefetching, the HTML prefetch. So we have a bit of a slow time until first byte, but you would never know it after the first page view because so many things get cached. And then every product on the page gets prefetched. So when you click on it, it instantly loads.
You actually blew my mind with the image thing. One image size sounds like heresy to me, but actually that makes a ton of sense. And there's a guy, Colin, that works here he didn't say exactly that, but he has been talking about like JPEG XL and stuff, which can load a much larger image, and it gradually improves the quality as the thing comes in. And now, yeah, of course, only one resource to pull down, only one network request. Is much shorter. Now you have it cached and you can show it on the next page. Is quite brilliant. You said something. I remember when you guys were building, you talked about this idea of campsite mentality. I'm curious. It was a new first time I had heard it, and so I want to make sure you get the credit for it. But what did you mean by that?
I don't think I can actually take the credit in terms of campsite mentality. I think I've heard it passed down to me in my years programming, but the campsite mentality is you leave a campsite better than how you found it. So when you're working on something, maybe you notice something and you clean it up a little bit more. And so with coding, what we would make sure we did throughout the development process is kept an eye on our performance and stats as things went along. And that's why having Sentry done early and having tracing and understanding how long transactions were taking allowed us to pinpoint when we would have a regression. One thing you have to be careful of with Remix is, you have a root loader that loads on every single page. And so anything that you put on that root loader then impacts the performance of the rest of the pages. And so we would at times early in the development put a blocking API call that may have been slow, and then we would notice it and then figure out ways to refactor our code. Could we stream whatever that request was? Or were we creating a new cart? Could that happen at the moment add to cart was pressed? Things like that.
Yeah, I think, tell me more about streaming and defer. I think that's, it was new with React 18, I think, originally, and it's something that we see people sometimes use and abuse, sometimes use properly, sometimes not know to reach for it at all. What was your approach with it?
There's an important art and science balance of what needs to be loaded on the page immediately and what you can defer. I'd say the things that you need immediately are things that the crawlers need for SEO, or if you're serving ads for checking that the price in the ad matches the price on the product so your ads don't get disapproved. Things like that need to be instant. I'd say the art side of that is you really want to reduce flickering or things that just pop onto the screen. So generally speaking, things above the fold are cached and cached and blocked and served when the page loads. But not everything is done that way. So if you do have something that you need to stream that's above the fold, I think the most important thing is, and I'm a big stickler for this, is that to the pixel, can your skeleton view match the height and width of the thing that you're loading? It's not always possible. You may not know the length of text of the thing that will replace it, but you can take a screen recording and scrub it and make sure that you're not seeing things jump around as you're loading. And so even for the things that if you visit our website that pop in, it doesn't feel so jarring because the skeleton view is an exact width and height, X and Y of the thing that it replaces, or that will replace it, I should say.
People think about performance in two ways. One is increase conversion rate. The other is improve my SEO. I'm curious, when are you performant enough? Sometimes for developers, it's like max it out because for the sake of my own, desire and craft. But how did you guys think about impact to the business and investment in performance overall? And did you actually see those returns come out, or is it again, for the main reason, or but yeah, how do you think about that?
It's a great question. It's a complicated question too. So you do want to make your site as fast as possible, and at the same time, technology is expanding. So take the image example. Even phones have tons of memory now. So loading a 200 kilobyte image, maybe 20 of them on a page, a phone can handle that. Similarly, website speeds are getting faster. So, you do want to try to cater to the 99th percentile and make your site as fast as possible. And then also use these tricks like visual tricks and sleights of hand to make the site feel instant. Our site does convert better than it did last year. Now, we've done a lot of things to make that happen, and both feature-wise and speed-wise. And I do think you always want to be striving toward the perfect score. But that part about Goodhart's Law is don't make a compromise just for the sake of performance. And so, for example, you could serve a lower quality image, but if it's grainy, are you actually delivering better value to the customer? I think not. Similarly, there's a new core Web Vital, this interaction to next pane. And it's still unclear to me how that's being calculated. So is it the animation when a button's pressed that causes the millisecond delay? Is it actually we're just running a lot of JavaScript that's blocking the main thread and it's slowing down that render cycle? There's more that we want to learn there, but are we dropping everything we're doing to chase that metric? Not yet.
Okay, so your site's fast. It's all feature complete. Talk to me about how you rolled it out.
For sure. So we talked to a lot of people who went down this road and did a cutover, and we learned what they learned the hard way. I mean, experience is the best teacher. I'd say the biggest piece of advice that we were given is do not let your new site get indexed by Google before you're ready for that to occur. And so ways that could go wrong is do not redirect traffic from your live site to your new site. And for your new site, put the belt and suspender approach on it. So what that meant for us was a norobot.txt file that had no routes allowed. Every page on the new site had a no robots meta tag, and the server was returning a no robots header on every request. So that was step one, is like, do not let the new site get crawled before you're ready. And then second, what we did with your help is deployed the new site as www.fastgrowingtrees.com, but with no public references to it. And what we did is we worked with our marketing team to devise email campaigns where the email was identical in the test and control. The only difference was the new site had www, and we then monitored performance over several weeks. Now, depending on your email volume, you may not get a statistically significant result while A/B testing, and that's okay. But what it did is, because we had less overall volume, it gave us plenty of breathing room to fix crashes, fix issues, look into Sentry, make an additional couple improvements, and then gave us the comfort of flipping the switch just overnight on, it was actually the Tuesday after Black Friday, like the day after Cyber Monday.
Wow. It is, again, not busy season, but
atypical.
No matter how you slice it, it's the craziest time to roll things out.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about everything that's happened sort of since then, since Giving Tuesday, I guess is what they call it now. So what's happened since Giving Tuesday?
It was a very Giving Tuesday for us.
No kidding. No kidding.
We've been elated. Our development speed has doubled, and not only has it doubled, but we're delivering more complicated features that have less regressions. So it's been a really good experience, and it's really a point of emphasis why development speed is so important. You are not going to just have every feature right the first time that you code it. You can't read the customer's mind. As you grow, you have more and more customers. So you just have to take a lot of these shots on net in order to deliver value. And so by going to this headless site, we've been able to just iterate, and be able to figure out what our customers need and keep growing the product.
It's so crazy you say that. I talk about this all the time, but I have this, what I call a Babe Ruth philosophy to product, which is the guy had the most home runs, but he also led the league in the most strikeouts. And he just swung for it every time. And you just need to get so many revs in, because every idea is great, and then it meets reality, and then you find out for sure. And so I love that approach. Can our team claim any credit for your productivity boost, or is this just the headless React composability approach overall, or how's Hydrogen helping you out in this regard?
I mean, definitely having all the samples that we were able to then implement. We used a lot of the account page. We used all the setup. The caching is really, really huge. All of that has been critical. And then from there, yes, our team has been building out tons of features, and the framework just hasn't had any hiccups. So it just allows us to focus on the fun stuff, which is building product.
Oh man, I never wrote that, never shipped that to my marketing side, but I've always said focus on the fun stuff is like the most important thing, and it's what we do because it's all about this. I'm taking this from another company, but the removing the undifferentiated heavy lifting, or something we use here a lot is this term called toil. Like that's just the absolute enemy of being able to hone your craft and just like have a good day at work. Is like doing something that brings no net new value, is just meaningless time wasting. So that is our total goal. So I'm so happy that that's worked out for you guys too. And I think it's actually kind of a fairly interesting thing that you brought up, because I've heard this from a couple other folks as well. Somebody recently who's another merchant who switched to Hydrogen from another headless approach, actually, another React framework. And the main reason they did it was not for performance, was not for one of these things, but was actually for productivity and for, we're going to get conversion rate improvements, but it's not going to come from some performance gain, some magical silver bullet. It's going to come from the ability for us to focus on, hey, new Shopify feature comes out, we can adopt that right away because Hydrogen makes it easy. And we just focus on what's unique to our business, and we ship a lot faster. So I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's great to hear like that's been sort of your experience too. So I'm curious, from a customer experience perspective, have you guys noticed anything? What's changed? You said you intentionally didn't try to make zero changes at all when you first launched. What sort of happened then, since then, and how's customer experience overall been impacted?
Definitely. So, there were a lot of nice things that we were able to implement with the headless site as well. Tailwind was really great to work with. And what it allowed us to do is, for an accessibility perspective, create a site that looked good with every browser zoom imaginable. So right off the bat, our site was way more accessible. And that delivers a lot of value, I think, to our customers, in that the site is just easier to use, things aren't cut off. And then since then, we've delivered a lot of features on top of it. Being able to communicate delivery timing to our users, being able to expand the amount of products that we can have filters on, things like that. Getting people in front of the exact right plant for their yard is a critical part of our business.
I'm curious, in the time since launch, so when I was a merchant prior to joining Shopify, and I launched a headless site, and afterwards it was like months of patching the ship, because there was a lot of things I didn't realize Liquid gave me for free. There were things I didn't realize were going to break when I went live. We tried to close as many of those as possible with Hydrogen. I'm curious what happens with you. And the other thing is that I don't know if you guys rate bugs. I don't ever. But in case you do, last year we invested a ton of time into debugging tools. I hopefully nobody ever discovers them, but of course they will. Curious what that experience has been like for you. Like, we're talking about all the good stuff, but what happens in the disaster scenarios, and how does your team approach that?
Well, we haven't had any disaster scenarios. I think we've been very fortunate. It's really a testament to the team, just how hard they work, their experience, and also having early warning tools like Sentry. There are some things that Shopify has delivered that I'm actually pretty eager to get our hands on that we haven't taken a crack at yet, which is, if you do look at our core web vitals, one thing that I'd love to get down is that time until first byte. And part of that is because none of the pages are cached, of course, but there is probably a lot of unnecessary things that we're doing that maybe we could defer or lazy load that can make our site better. And there's actually a number of Shopify documentation on CPU profiling and things like that I'm very much looking forward to getting a chance to use and continue to improve our speeds, because time until first byte is actually a very, very important core web vital, because literally everything else is behind that time. So if you can get that score down, every other score also goes down.
You were making my job so easy. This is like this is everything I'm trying to communicate at work right now. I'm just gonna copy paste this video. So this is incredible.
I love this stuff too. This is fun for me.
But yeah, saying it so succinctly, which has been fantastic. So yeah, we're talking about performance. You guys have done, we've covered it all already. So many awesome things here, and lots of planning went into it. Lots of, you use all the tips and tricks, but it's a small team, a pretty fast timeline. These people are doing some awesome stuff. Sal, Andrew, Bruno, we've talked about their incredible work. How do you think about talent overall, and what are for folks who are watching this, what makes a great craftsperson for this type of a team? Because this is a very special kind of web development as well. It's not like you're just, as you said, you're not just building another single page app. So what do you look for, and what goes into, your team also as they're building their craft?
Definitely. Something very passionate for me is building craft. And I like to think that engineers aren't just given a task and do the task, but they actually have a say in how we build what we build. So our engineers know the product inside and out. We'll take field trips where we study trees in the parks and know what our customers are looking for. I also like to say you're an intersection of your strengths. So growing up, I loved to mess around with Photoshop and Illustrator, just designing posters and things like that. And I never knew how that one day may serve me. But fast forward to today, and those same skills allow me and the team to build really beautiful user experiences and, give good feedback to our designers. Part of moving fast is also, can you 80-20 the design? Hey, this design looks great, but it would take us X amount of time to build. Here's an alternative that's a bit faster. So really tying it all together, it's about, how does your team think holistically about the product, about the customer, blending their skills together and delivering value?
All right, we've covered so much. I'll just hand it to you, sort of open ended. Anything else you want to cover that maybe you haven't? Share about your Shopify headless experience with Hydrogen, and then also want to know just where can people learn more about fast growing trees and the business.
I can absolutely vouch for the Shopify team. You guys were great helping us throughout the process. Any question we had, you were quick to answer and provide us solutions. We've had an awesome experience using the software. We haven't had any hiccups. We haven't had to patch anything other than our own bugs. And if you ever are in the need for a tree, whether indoor or outdoor, a beautiful yard, come check us out at fastgrowingtrees.com.
Fantastic. Jordan, thanks again so much. This was incredible. I can only imagine people watching are going to learn a lot, because I learned a ton just going through it, and just so many incredible nuggets in there. So again, It's always a pleasure, but this was especially incredible. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ben. Have a great day.